As we stand on the precipice of taking this city back from corrupt politicians and the billionaires that fund them, let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment. Let them ring so loud so that he can hear us even if he's in Westchester this evening. Let them ring so loud that his puppet master in the White House hears us. New York is not for sale. Again, our nation has teetered on the precipice of hopelessness. Now is one of those times. But in each of these moments, working people have reached into the darkness and reshaped our democracy. No longer will we allow the Republican Party to be the one of ambition. No longer will we have to open a history book to read about Democrats leading with big ideas.
Zohran Mamdani is expected to take the helm of one of the most important cities in the world and the largest city in America. And he now has the full blessing of the Democrat leader in the House of Representatives. It is shocking. And that leader and all the other Democrats are going to co-own the consequences of what they do to America's largest city. Every reporter in this room should be asking every House Democrat individually whether they too agree with Hakeem's endorsement of the Marxist agenda. It's an extraordinary moment in the history of American politics, as this is not the kind of history that we need to be making. What we're witnessing is truly the end of the Democratic Party as we've known it.
But New York residents, they're going to the polls next week, and they're probably going to have a new mayor. Zohran Mamdani is expected to prevail. Let's hear from him.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Well, it wasn't so much his aunt as his dad's cousin, but, semantics. Douglas, is he ready to lead?
No, in absolutely no way is he ready to lead. And that was just another reminder of it. This is such a self-involved little narcissist with so little going for him that he even decides to turn the memory of 9/11 and the 3,000 Americans murdered that day into a story about his aunt and the subway. It's interesting, like so many things that this smarmy candidate does, he makes it about himself and it all turns out to be untrue anyway. It seems to the extent that he had any such aunt in question, she wasn't in New York at the time, and in any case, didn't wear the headscarf. So it's an interesting one, New Yorkers. Within less than a quarter of a century of 9/11, do we allow things like the slaughter of 3,000 Americans by Islamic fundamentalists to be turned instead into a story of how this apparently fictitious, or at least partly fictitious, figure of his aunt might have once felt possibly as if someone could look at her badly, nastily in the subway in the years after. This is just outrageous, and I'm afraid everyone in Europe who has seen candidates like Mamdani before knows exactly what's going on. He's trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. He's trying to smarm and smile his way into office. But this statement alone, if we didn't have any other evidence of his extremist views, would demonstrate the extremism of his views, because he's not able to focus on the things that actually have affected Americans, and instead wants to keep on creating, as so many radicals like him do, wants to create fictitious narratives about America and Americans being bigoted. And, Americans can't even be murdered by jihadists without people like Mamdani turning it into a fear of a pseudo-fictitious aunt of theirs once feeling sad about possibly being looked at meanly. I mean, this is just outrageous, and the umpteenth example and demonstration of why Mamdani should be nowhere near the mayoral office in New York.
Well, we had the mayoral debate finally. What do we learn there? Mamdani presents himself as this progressive champion of the poor. Is he at least that? Can the poor expect to get more affordable housing in New York City, for example?
No, I mean, he has no real plan for any of that. One of his few flagship policies is that he says that if he becomes mayor, he wants to make riding the bus in New York free. He was asked in this debate by the moderator. Finally, he got some sort of tricky questions. People actually drilled down behind the smile. And they said, there's this $700 million, I think it's expected to cost, this free bus ride thing. How are you going to pay for it, he was asked. And he replied by saying that if bus riding is made free, it will lower violence against bus drivers. It's not clear why that is. I mean, among other things, if anyone can just jump on a bus in New York, including all the homeless and the drug addicts and everything else without paying, I don't know why that makes life safer for anyone. But he also said that it meant that more people would ride the bus and therefore fewer people would get in their cars. I'm afraid that policy, or at least versions of that, have been tried elsewhere. What will happen is the buses will become more dangerous than they are, and as a result, many more people will use their cars than would have done. But he was then pushed again. Yes, but irrespective of potential violence against bus drivers in New York, how are you going to pay for it? And eventually, he said, through higher taxes. So great. He's such an economic whiz kid, this guy. He says he's going to give New Yorkers free bus rides, but they're going to have to pay for it in higher taxes. That's the kind of thing that socialists like him always argue for. They take more and more money away from the public. They make the public poorer and poorer, but they dangle little baubles. Like every now and then you can get a free bus ride on a more dangerous bus. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yes, it's going to be scary to think what New York's going to look like in 2 or 3 years' time under a hard left socialist Mamdani administration.